Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. My name is Alyssa, but you might also know me as Gossamer or Gossart. Really quick, I'd really appreciate if you would take a quick moment to hit the like or subscribe button down below. That would really help me grow my channel here. I am going to be posting more videos soon. I'm going to be posting sketches or traditional art every Monday. And then these digital videos, I'm not quite sure what my schedule for that is going to be. Hopefully at least once a month, twice a month if I can get my recording and voiceovers done in a quick enough amount of time. But anyway, today I am drawing Aries, which is the next character in my Zodiac series. Aries is the March through April sign. So the video's coming up a little late. I'm going to try and get my production speed a little bit faster here with the videos. Turnaround is going to be a little bit better so that these will come out a little closer to when their season actually is. But for now, this is what we have. So you can see that I started by tracing the original pencil sketch that I did just in my sketchbook. I don't change a lot with her design actually. Mostly I just change a couple things that were off with the posture. Later I'm going to change up that sort of arm that's on her hip right now to be up by her head, and I'm glad I made that change. I think it works for her character a lot better, as well as just looking a little bit more anatomically correct or like less weird. And I'll get into that a little bit later as well. So I did want to say a couple things that I have learned about Aries. They are supposed to be strong-minded and stubborn, as well as bold and spontaneous. They're a fire sign, which represents energy and passion. So when doing this, I wanted to give her sort of a sporty feel while also having that passion side, or like something a little bit more romantic or elegant almost. So that's why she's in like this nicer dress that sort of contrasts with her sporty jacket and haircut and her pose. And I think that worked out pretty well. I think I was able to convey in her design what I wanted to. So yeah, I'm working on the line art here, and when I sketch, I actually sort of think in color. So when I did the original sketch, I pictured her having brown hair and a red dress and the black jacket and whatnot. I sort of think in color when I'm sketching, and when I was doing the line art, I suddenly realized that if I give her brown hair, she's gonna look a lot like Oikawa from Haikyuu, which is an anime about volleyball. It's really funny. If you haven't seen it, you should give it a watch. It's pretty good. And the character she looks like, I don't know, he's something else. He's really funny. And I couldn't find any information on what sign Oikawa is. I don't know if he's a Taurus or Aries or whatever. I feel like he could be one of those, or maybe a Leo, but I really don't know. So I do end up leaving her hair brown just because that was the color that I pictured. It's the color that fits, and I think it's a little funny that she ended up, having Oikawa's haircut, basically. It wasn't planned that way, but I just thought it was like a funny little joke for myself, so I kept it that way. And then later, as I was coloring her hair more, I realized that not only does it look like Oikawa's hair, it also looks a bit like Amanda's hair from Little Witch Academia, which is also a very cute show, and the movie's really cute. If you haven't seen it, you should give it a watch. It's pretty good. And I don't know, it was interesting for me that she ended up looking like these two characters that I sort of associate with the energy and stubbornness that comes with Aries. So I did look up Amanda, and I couldn't find anything about what sign she has. So I'm just gonna headcanon that she is an Aries because it makes sense, and she's a lot like this character that I'm drawing here. So yeah, just fun little tidbits for you. I do want to mention that like in the last video, I made the skirt way too short on accident, and here with Aries, I wanted her skirt to be short, but I also didn't want to have the same mistake happen again. So I went in and I made her skirt a little longer there, as you saw, and I think that helped. I think if I'd kept it where it had been in the original sketch, it would have been way too short because this character's legs are quite long. That's something that I've been trying to work on a little bit, is my anatomy, really. So her legs are a bit long, she's a little bit tall, but I think it's okay. I think it works with her character design. And I just wanted to make sure her skirt didn't look like 2 inches long again. So there's a couple other things that I do later that help with that. I change where that hand and purse are placed a little bit, because right now they're too low and her wrist looks off-jointed. I actually had my mom and my brother around because I was working at this at my mom's house. I was like, something's wrong with her hand, what's wrong with it? And they came over and looked at it a bit and helped me figure out what was wrong with her hand, where it actually needed to be. And also this zipper here that I'm working on. My mom sews a lot and she's very, very good at it. She made costumes for the middle school and high school musicals that I was in at our school. She also made my wedding dress and the dress she wore at my wedding and all the jackets for my bridesmaids. So that's a quick shout out to my mom. She's amazing. But also, I was drawing this working at her house and I was like, hey mom, do you have a zipper? And she just handed me a zipper and I got to actually look at a zipper and see what it looked like and really draw what an actual zipper looks like. And it was fun and great, but in the end it just didn't look quite right for the picture. It didn't match. So you'll see in a minute I changed that. I use a sort of like Boolean wave brush. I don't know what it's called, but it's just sort of a square binary wave thing that I use for almost every zipper in all of my artwork. I would like to take some time and draw zippers better, or maybe even make my own custom zipper brush. I think that would be really fun. But for now, I'm gonna stick with that Boolean brush just because it works. It's what I've been using, and so it's consistent and matches the other artwork that I've done in the past and the other artwork I'm gonna continue to do. And you can see I'm changing to that here. This necklace, I found a necklace that looked a lot like this on Pinterest when I was just searching for Aries stuff. The sort of sign symbol for Aries is the ram. And I thought it was just super fun, cool, would be a nice little touch, give her more of like almost a punk feel. And I thought that would go well with her sort of mismatch of nice dress, sporty jacket type thing. And then here, as I'm working with the chains, I was using a brush that comes with Clip Studio Paint, and it just wasn't working. It didn't look right. It was too small. Even when I tried to trace it, things were small and weird looking, so I just opted to get rid of the chain completely, and I just gave her a different strap around her hand instead. So this is where I come in and change up where her arm is. I tried a couple times to make this hip stance work, and I think I could have made it work and made it look right in the end, but I am glad that I opted to move her arm completely. I think it just looks and fits better with the artwork. And at one point, I keep drawing the arm over and over again, and then at some point here, I just sketch in like little squiggle octopus arms. And I think it's important when you're drawing to, take a break and be a little silly like that. Just let your hands flow, do something funny, make yourself laugh. I think that really helps. It lets you be a little more loose with your art instead of feeling sort of bogged down by the details or stiff or frustrated, things like that. So I really recommend when you're drawing, if you're stuck on something, just make it squiggly or weird. Give your character buck teeth or a W mouth. I don't know. Anything that sort of just, frees you up a little bit. I think that's super helpful to do when you're feeling, if you start to feel frustrated, take a break, or at the very least, do something silly and then come back to it later. That always helps me. My end result always looks better, and I'm always happier if I've taken a break or something instead of just powering through to the end. So really quick here, I want to talk about these shoelaces. The original plan was I was going to draw them in that thick line and then go in with the eraser and clear out like a spot in the middle, and then have the outside of this line now be the line art. But it wasn't working as well as I wanted it to, and it didn't look right either. So instead I opted for just using a really big brush, the line brush, to go in and make the shoelaces. Then I turned that line white, and I made a black border around that and then fixed it up in some areas so that the shoelaces looked a little more complete. In the coloring book version of this artwork here, the shoelaces are still that plain black. If any of you want to have me change that so the shoelaces are white instead, or just leave them out or something like that, let me know in the comments down below. I would be happy to go in and update that a little bit, change the coloring book. If you want that coloring book page, you can get it on my Patreon. It's free for patrons. You can also find it on Gumroad, which I'll leave links to all of that in the description down below. So that's my little plug there. I did recently just figure out that my printer, the ink is the right kind of ink that works with Copics, so I can print my liner and color with Copics. So I'm very excited to do that. I'm going to be testing out a couple things here and hopefully posting a video at some point of that. So if you do want like a coloring page or whatever, visit my Gumroad and just print it off, see what happens. You can color it with markers or color pencil. I'd really love to see how you guys color my art. I've got a couple other coloring pages up there as well. If you do color anything, definitely send me a link, or leave a comment somewhere on my art to show me, tag me, whatever. I want to see it, and I want to see what you guys are doing with my art. I think that would be really fun. While we're coloring here, I do also want to mention that I had a tough time picking her skin and blush color. I had sort of like a vision in my mind of what tone of skin she might have, and then when I chose that, the blush was like too orange and then it was too pink, so eventually I get it right, but I didn't leave that part in the video because, like I mentioned with the Pisces video, I do the flat colors in Clip Studio here, and then I export that image into Krita, where I can change all my colors to CMYK so that they're printer compatible, and then I bring it back into Clip Studio and finish my artwork there with those printer compatible colors in mind. So I didn't leave it in, but it took me a really long time to find a skin tone and blush tone that worked well together and didn't look super weird. I think part of the reason I had trouble with that is growing up, I lived in a very white town. I'm white. I everyone in town was white. And that's just where I grew up. And then in middle school, my friend introduced me to manga and anime, and most of manga and anime characters are drawn with weirdly white skin. I definitely read some manga where some of the characters literally had paper white skin. So making characters and learning to draw and whatnot when I was younger, I didn't think anything of it. I just drew white characters or characters with very pale skin. And then when I went to college, I was able to experience a million times more diversity than I ever got to experience at home. Where I worked on campus, the first year I worked there, I was the only white person. Actually, that's a lie. There was another a white woman working there, one of my coworkers, but she was also Muslim. So I worked in a really diverse workplace, and it was amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And I think that's really when I started trying to be a bit more mindful of diversity in my artwork. Growing up, it was just something that I never thought of because it wasn't something I ever saw. And I absolutely love and miss the diversity I had when I lived in Seattle. I learned so much from my coworkers, from classmates, from friends, and it was so much fun. And diversity is something that's really important to me. I really love learning about other cultures and other people. I am a linguist. That's what I went to college for. So I already knew that I loved world languages and culture, but being able to see and experience that on a more personal level was absolutely amazing. And since then, I've wanted to make sure that my artwork's a little more mindful of diversity and that I don't just draw, white characters or anime characters with very pale skin. But because for a really long time, I only drew what I saw, which was white people and pale Japanese anime characters, I sort of missed out on learning how to draw other skin tones at an earlier age when I was really learning how to draw. So I've been playing sort of catch up with that over the last couple years. And this character, even, she's still fairly pale. At least I think she's pretty pale. But it's so easy for me to look at a color wheel and pick a pale skin tone and a blush that matches and a shading color that matches. I can do that really easy because I've had so much practice with it. But picking a skin tone that's not pale and finding a blush that matches and finding a shading color that matches, that's a little more difficult for me. And it's something that I really want to practice going forward. So you will see that in the rest of the Zodiac series. I have a couple designs that are, the characters are white. I have some where they're not white. I have ones that are black, brown, whatever. So it's something that you guys are hopefully going to see a lot more of from me because I want to practice and I want to learn how to color other skin tones a lot better. So since it's on screen a little bit here, I'm sure most of you just noticed that I had this weird texture on the skin on her chest, and I just went in and got rid of it at the end. That was the texture that I put down on her legs for her tights. So it was just sort of on top of the color layer I had for her skin, and I totally didn't realize that it was not just on her legs until like right there where I was shading the necklace. So I did go in and fix that. It took me a really long time to find a texture that I was okay with for her tights. Drawing tights is pretty difficult. I used to just sort of, have the skin color underneath and then slap on a blackish brownish color at low transparency and call it a day. And now I'm trying to add more detail to my work recently. I'm trying to add better anatomy, better lighting, stuff like that, and a lot more textures. So I was looking around for something that would look like nylon. And there's really not many good textures for it, or at least there weren't any that I found on the Clip Studio gallery that I felt were really usable for that. So eventually I found something, and I think it works okay, but it's still not exactly how I would like it to be. So that's also something that I'm going to try practicing going forward here, is drawing tights and figuring out how to actually make them look more like tights. So I'm sure you've all figured it out by now, but I really like drawing shiny things and glowy things. So adding those last little highlights is probably one of my favorite parts of the drawing. I think it really ties everything together, really makes different shapes pop, shows you, helps you differentiate dark colors from each other when you've got line art that's not showing up super well next to that dark color, stuff like that. And now I think I'm just adding the last little touches here, and then I go into the background. The background, I took the background I created for Pisces. I shifted the colors a little bit to match the color palette for this drawing better, and I of course changed the constellation in it from being, the Pisces constellation to being the Aries constellation. And that's basically it, and I'm going to be doing that going forward with just about every Zodiac character. I'm going to take that same background, change the constellation in it, shift the color palette a bit, and I think that's really going to help bring that Zodiac series theme together, because each character is going to look different, each one's going to be unique, because we're, the Zodiac signs all have these different things that they represent, or characteristics that people associate with them and whatnot, but each one's still unique and a little different, even though they're all in that series together. So, yeah, that's what you're all going to see from me in the future, is these backgrounds are going to be pretty similar to each other, and I think that's going to be really fun. I like when things are sort of matching but slightly different, so that's something that I really enjoy, and I like drawing, and I like having in real life and whatnot. And I do have Pisces up on the screen there to compare some things with and whatnot, but that's pretty much it. So thank you all for watching. I would really, again, appreciate if you could give me a like or a subscribe, or follow me on my other media. Links are always down in the description for you. But I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.